You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru at. Tümer gitti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Cuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody! Episode 180 of Batshuayi International's The Black Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Sinan, live from New York City. A steamy summer's day here on Wednesday, August 11th. An exciting Wednesday for everyone, I think. We've got, it's like, I guess in the background, we've got some NBA Summer League for basketball fans. The Olympics have just wrapped up for general sporting fans, if you will. And of course, Beşiktaş season is upon us. The preseason has concluded. Our friendlies are over. There is no Super Cup until the winter, for reasons that are sort of beyond most of us. But so yeah, besides that, we do have a lot of exciting things to talk about today, obviously. On top of the season that's upcoming, which everyone is of course excited about. We also have just about the most exciting transfer news you could ask for. But uncharacteristically, I'm going to delegate, which, man, New York is really making some noise today. It's a daytime recording session here, so bear with me, folks. But yeah, like I said, I'm delegating a lot of the news and the talk of transfers. I'm going to hand off to guess who? But Kaan, who's not here, sorry, no applause or anything like that. He is, I promised this previously, and I'm so glad to finally be able to deliver it. Kaan is delivering segments, like we've talked about on air before. We haven't been able to record, in the same place and the same time. He's got some scheduling issues, some wonky things going on. For anyone who wants the info, we talked about it on air in our last podcast episode together. I don't remember which number it is. Doesn't matter. Anyway, but he is, as we promised, going to start contributing what we're calling for now #Kaan's Corner. Very exciting news. So he's back, in some form, which is thrilling. And he's gonna talk about a lot of fun stuff. And I'm sure a lot of folks who are longtime listeners will enjoy hearing his voice again. For those who are new, and I guess there are probably some of those out there nowadays, Kaan was the original co-host alongside myself, and for, I want to say years, but certainly for quite a long time. The two of us we're running this ship together, so it's always great to have him involved in some fashion. And of course, eventually, soon, relatively speaking, we're going to be able to do this thing together again. So yeah, stay tuned for all of that. But certainly, I will hand the reins to him eventually. But first, I want to talk about our friendly match, our last friendly match of the season. A bit of a snooze fest against Adana Demirspor. And then, of course, I want to do a little season preview. This episode's theme is the 2021-2022 Beşiktaş season preview. It should be a great season, I suspect. At least entertaining, right? Great, results, you never know. Turkey is a pretty crazy league, very competitive. I've been really promoting it to kind of neutrals, just football fans in general. I think it probably is very entertaining. It's maybe even more so if you're not as invested as some of us are You're not getting heart attacks and whatnot on a regular basis from craziness. But yeah, it's going to be a great season, I think, and I'm excited to talk about it. And I'm really obviously excited to be able to start talking about some real matches. This summer, some of you, I haven't gotten any negative complaints, which I appreciate. But yeah, I've been a little less timely with episodes. Obviously, news has been slow coming. But it's coming in a deluge now. So, I'll be back regularly now. Also, obviously, with with match day episodes. And yeah, some other great news on the horizon. With Alex Teixeira, we have a new transfer. And so that means Kaan is going to be back at it with an interview. More to come on that, obviously. We hope it'll be in the next week or so. Before it's outdated news. But obviously, we're all excited about the news of Alex Teixeira coming. That is official. We're obviously all excited about the news of Valentin Rosier having come. That's obviously very much official. He's already featured in a friendly, which I will talk about in a moment. And we're obviously even more excited, perhaps, about the arrival of Rachid Ghezzal, only because of the fact that he was so impactful last season, and things seemed tenuous, right? It seemed for a minute like maybe there was going to be some drama, but lo and behold, the man is returning. And not only is he returning, but on good numbers, at least long-term ones. And there's more to come as well on the transfer front. So even though the season's beginning, we're going to have more to talk about that theoretically, right? We don't have a striker yet, or this backup central defender, or starter, I guess, if he's replacing Wellington in the starting lineup. But stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, let's dig into what we are going to talk about this episode. That is Besiktas visiting Adana Demirspor. They had a very fancy ceremony to sort of kick off their season via this friendly. I'll just lay it out on the table. We drew in the end 1-1 in kind of classic friendly terms, if you will. And it was a snooze fest, as I already said. It was a real, the whole preseason, as far as these matches went, there wasn't a lot to get excited about. Let's be honest. A lot of the sort of smaller transfers we made along the peripherals, like Kenan Karaman and Salih Uchan, they needed to sort of settle in and get acquainted to playing with, guys who were already in the team. It's good Rosier got to come back and play a little bit with these guys as well and get a little warmed up. It's unfortunate, obviously, that Rachid Ghezzal did not. But, supposedly Leicester has a very intensive training program in the summer, and he requested to train hard so that he'd be ready to come in, land with his feet on the ground running, rather than having to settle in and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I sort of botched that expression. Whatever. We're rolling with it. Pluses and minuses as far as the preseason friendlies go. Obviously, the plus being just guys getting experience that are new to the team, and some guys returning and just getting warmed up a little. So let's talk about this one. Ersin was in the goal again, so perhaps good news for people who want to see him stick around. I think we all suspect that he was definitely outgoing, that they would have probably avoided him getting injured or tried to get Utku a little experience as our backup or whatever it might be. So I don't know what the deal is with that. By the way, the latest is that we've agreed on terms with Mert Günok, so that's somewhat official. And I don't think that means Ersin's not the starter still or with the team still. What it does mean is that we have a better backup than Utku at the very least, and very likely a bit of drama as far as who's going to start. Anyway, on the back line, Domagoj Vida and Necip Uysal, so something new for the preseason. Valentin Rosier, also new for the preseason, returning on the right side of the defense with Fabrice and Sakala on the left side. Mehmet Topal returning to the midfield, which I think we all agree is better than, as a central defender in that last match. Which also, to be fair to him, perhaps he He was cold, coming off a long stretch of not playing, and that being his first preseason action. Ahead of him in the midfield were Atiba Hutchinson, back to the sort of central midfield role, and Joseph de Souza, also in a bit more of a central midfield role, but we can all be real here. There's 3 defensive midfielders out there. Gökhan Töre played on the right side, Georges Kevin Nkoudou on the left, and Guven Yalçın up front. So yeah, not particularly exciting stuff, if we're going to be frank. Utku on the bench, Rıdvan Yılmaz, Salih Uçan, Ozan Özyakup, Adem Ljajic, Kerem Kartal Yılmaz, Kartal Kayra Yılmaz, Serdar Saçi, and Emre Bilgin, our third string keeper. He always makes the bench somehow. Everyone featured in as a substitute, with the exceptions of Emre, of course, the third string keeper, and Rıdvan Yılmaz, which is interesting. So Fabrice Nsakla played the whole match. Make of that what you will. Perhaps they're just resting the kid. Who knows? I'm not too worried about it. Anyway, the end result, to put things briefly, Georges Kevin Nkoudou scored a goal, a penalty kick in the 60th minute, and what is this dude's name? I'm trying to. I don't want to butcher it. Sound like a jerk. His name is Britt Assombalonga. He's from the Congo. Very big, physical dude. Looked good, honestly. He'll probably be a good fit in Turkey. Adana, they did a pretty decent job. Obviously they made headlines with Balotelli and all that, and I have to say it was fun to see him, in a Super League match. Just a guy of his prominence, But even beyond that, just on the peripherals of their squad, they seem to have done a very decent job of building a team. Obviously, that's going to be put to the test, and we shall see. But, whatever. It is what it is. Adem Ljajic, by the way, only came in the 84th minute. So, he did feature, but not much. I don't know what the deal is with him, if he's outgoing or not. Supposedly there have been some struggles in that regard. I've said for a long time that we're likely to see one of Adem Ljajic, Kyle Larin, Tyler Boyd. I think one of those 3 is outgoing. I sort of hesitantly put Domagoj Vida on that list, but I think it's too late for that now. In theory, with his contract and all that, and his interest, I think he would be someone that we'd sell if someone came in with the right price, but probably not now, not at this stage. But certainly one of the other 3, I think, to clear up a foreigner spot, you're likely to see sold. We'll see. We shall see. But anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm not going to talk much about the friendly. It was underwhelming. It was not fun to watch. It was a snoozer. It's done. The preseason is done. We're moving on up. Moving on up. So yeah, we're going to talk about the season now, because I think it's time. It's time for us to preview it. It's time for us to take it seriously. It is now upon us. Our first match is this coming Friday, August 13th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the eastern coast of the United States. So check your local listings. But a nice lunchtime. For those of you working on Friday, you can take a nice long lunch at 1:30, maybe a late lunch. You can say I'm taking a late lunch, but maybe perhaps a little longer, and you can sneak out, watch the match. For those of us working at home, might even get to sneak it on the boss's dime. No, I'm joking. Obviously, we're not talking about wage theft here. We do not support wage theft. That is not an official Be Fluent podcast line. That's our disclaimer for anyone who asks. You can do it, though. I don't care. Anyway, it's going to be a fun season. I really think it's going to be a fun season, and we're kicking it off with none other than Rizespor, who's a tough nut to crack. Typically they get surprise results against big sides. It's happened many a time. And so it's going to be fun to see us play. Obviously, we're going to be missing parts. I assume Alex Teixeira's 1 week quarantine means he's not going to be in for that match. I assume it's not Don't put me on the record. I don't know what, we're always finding. If he were joining Fenerbahce, there'd be no doubt he'd play somehow. But whatever. Let's not stew in conspiracy theory. Perhaps the same applies. Perhaps we get the same silly exceptions. But so yeah, he's in quarantine now. That's why we also haven't seen a ton of media, I suspect. Our next match is going to be against Gaziantep, which is interesting. So on the road, which is going to be Saturday, August 21st. Again, that's 2:45, so a time change-up. Again, that's Eastern Standard New York City time here. So check your local listings. So, there's this sort of period before daylight savings, which we do apply here in the States, but they don't do in Turkey any longer, where the games are going to become much earlier for all of us at some point. But for now, we're in this sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, if you will, where we can enjoy some late afternoon matches. That's going to be Saturday, August 21st at 2:45 against Gaziantep on the road. It's our first road match. And then we'll return home the following week, August 28th, again scheduled for 2:45 against Fatih Karagümrük, so the former Kings of Istanbul for like a couple months last year. They have also, like Adana Demirspor, put together a very interesting squad. They did interesting things last year. They have a young coach, Italian dude, who doesn't even have his license, so they have to have like a stand-in for him. So it's a very interesting situation there, and it should be a lot of fun. And so that's going to be a tough match, I think, honestly. And so those first three matches are all tough. They're all against tough opposition who could pose threats. They're not going to be walkovers by any stretch. All of them have had spells of success in the Super League where they sort of, notched in performances a bit above their level, if you will. So I think we can expect to be challenged. We're not going to have our full rotation of players yet. The number of guys not in. We don't even have a striker yet. I don't think Ghezzal is possible. I don't know if he's even in Istanbul yet. I think his manager is. Whatever. That's pretty much official. But I do believe what this means is with all the quarantine stuff, we're not going to see Ghezzal or Alex in this first match against Rize. So, their first match together will be against Gaziantep on the road, which is a tough nut to crack. So, I'm not gonna. My request of the team is that they get 7 points out of those three matches. Realistically, I think we could probably even expect maybe just 5 points, maybe a couple draws. I hope we don't drop points and lose. Our defense doesn't have the excuse that the rest of the team does. They've been there for a while. They're a solid bunch now. They put up pretty decent numbers in the end. They had a rough start to last season, as you'd expect with all the displacement. But yeah, there's no changes as far as that rotation goes on the back four, especially if Ersin stays in the team. So I fully expect a couple draws at the minimum. I don't want us to see us. I really don't want to see us lose points at all. But I expect it, to be honest. I just take no L's. L's are not acceptable. But so yeah, realistic, I say 5 points. Hopefully 7 points. We just drop one. We have one draw allowed, and we win 2 of those games. Those squads are also going to be kind of settling into the new season. So even though they are perhaps formidable, perhaps they won't start out that way. So there's a lot of wild cards and variables at work here. I mean, we could drop points. We could really even lose. Let's be realistic. The Super League. I've said this many times. The quality of the league has increased because of the foreigner limit not really existing for a minute there. Whereas the quality of the top teams has decreased because of financial fair play and the fact that they're so ridden with debt. So that has made for, it hasn't upended the whole thing, except obviously for Başakşehir's weird run the other year, a couple years ago. But it's certainly made for a scenario where anything can happen in this league, as we've seen time and time again, right? At the end of last season, and I even predicted this, I said we could drop a lot of points here because these teams are looking for blood. They smell blood. But nobody should expect that our rivals are going to win out their seasons either, and that was exactly the case. You you can expect the unexpected in the Super League these days, and I do now. So yeah, like I said, hopefully 7 points. I mean, hopefully 9 points, right? But realistically, hopefully 7 points, and then realistically 5 points. After that first the first 3 game stretch, we have Yanni Malatya at home. So we have 2 home matches in a row. Then we're on the road in Antalya, and then we host Adana Demirspor. So that's the next set of 3. September 12th, the 19th, and the 22nd. So we're back to midweek matches for Adana Demirspor. So yeah, stay tuned for all that. We'll obviously be. I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna predict those first 3 matches for fun. But yeah, we'll get obviously more into the matches further in advance as we roll into the season. I don't want to talk too much here because Kaan, it's great to have him back, and he really covers a lot of bases as he tends to do. But so yeah, without any further delay, it is my absolute pleasure to announce our very new segment, #Kaan's Corner. Folks, I present to you the man himself, Kaan Bayazit. Here's to you, sir.
Hey everyone, it's Kaan here with, I guess we're calling this Kaan's Corner. Let's quickly take a look at this crazy transfer window so far. It's been very un-Beşiktaş-like. I would think. Usually we're leaving these key transfers until the final days of the season. And yes, it's true, the league is starting in just 2 days from when I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Wednesday, and we are opening the season against Rizespor on Friday, which won't be easy. Rizespor have made some good moves on the transfer market themselves, and they look like a tough team, and we certainly aren't done yet. I feel like 3 friendly matches is a little bit on the low end of preparation for the new season, but it's going to be another long season. It's going to be another almost 40 games, 38 matches I believe in the league, so I mean it's going to be a long season. So no matter what happens on Friday, this is going to be hopefully a very exciting season, especially with the transfers that we have done already. Like I said, we aren't used to this sort of stuff, having almost 90% of the transfers finished before the start of the season. It's unheard of as for us Beşiktaş fans, right? When we finished last season in such a amazing way, which was both incredibly nerve-wracking, but also just fantastic to win the league on goal differential. And yes, we should have bagged it weeks beforehand, but with the circumstances of incredible amount of injuries at the same time and all that, the fact that we still managed to drag it across the finish line was sweet, was amazing. But with that, of course, we had 2 players that were on loan, with Rachid Ghezzal and Valentin Rosier, and I think that if you line up 100 Beşiktaş fans, if you would have asked them what should be this board's priority for next season, I think they all would have said keeping Ghezzal and keeping Rosier at the club. But I also think that from those 100, 90 plus would probably have said it's probably not gonna happen, it's probably not possible. And not only did it happen, not only did we sign Valentin Rosier on a permanent deal, well, it's a loan with obligation to buy, so it is a permanent deal. But we also signed Rachid Ghezzal on a permanent deal. Both of them 4-year contracts. Now, for Rosier, who's 25 years old, 4-year contract is an amazing deal. For Rachid Ghezzal, he's 29, 4-year contract. That's pushing it a little. It's a 3 plus 1 year deal though. So that would keep him theoretically at the club until he's 32 at the minimum and 33 at the maximum. I think that's okay, especially for a player like Rachid Ghezzal, who does not rely on speed. More so, he relies on technique, his crossing ability, his passing ability. And excuse me for the donkey in the background if you can hear him. That's it's a little added atmosphere for you. But for a guy like Rachid Ghezzal, I don't think it is that big of a deal. Obviously, some players decline more rapidly than others, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes for Ghezzal. But let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's hope he can keep his level at the same performance that he's performed for us this past season. Realistically, that's going to be very difficult, given how incredible he's performed this past season. It's hard to imagine any player of that caliber to consistently keep that up for 3-4 seasons. I mean, Ghezzal was, in my opinion, the single most influential player this past season for the title. So retaining him was important. That said, no player is irreplaceable. So I think we were all very much in the mindset of, hey, if we can manage to keep one of these guys, that's going to be amazing. But we managed to keep both of them against all odds, against all the meddling of Galatasaray, who really did their best to bump up their prices or to flat out just swoop them and basically steal them from our grasps. Fortunately, that did not work. Rosier told them to take it elsewhere, and ultimately Ghezzal's agent tried to leverage Galatasaray's interest for more money, but it didn't work. Ghezzal ended up signing for the exact same money that we had initially agreed on with him, before his agent then afterwards, after the agreement, tried to jack up the price more. And we only paid roughly 3 million euros for him. Another amazing feat. 3 million euros for a player that I think everyone assumed would cost north of 5, probably around 7 million. That is an absolute steal. 29 years old, only just turned 29, just had a tremendous part in the title. And we managed to sign him on a permanent deal for 3 million euros. And he's going to earn roughly 2.2 million a year with add-ons and stuff like that. So it's a steep wage. Let's not forget, last season we were talking about how we were probably not going to be paying players more than 1.5 million anymore. But I also don't think we thought we were going to qualify for the Champions League. And I definitely don't think that after we managed to qualify for the Champions League that we were going to be able to retain all these players. Like, this is the first time since this new era, since the Vodafone Park era, so to speak, I'll call it that, the Vodafone Park era. This is the first time in the Vodafone Park era that we won the league and retain almost our entire squad. Like, in 2015-16, we lost arguably the most important component to that title, Mario Gomez. The season after, we lost Aboubakar. And then the season after that, ultimately, well, that was the season after we didn't win the league, but we lost Talisca. Like, we had those big loan moves that came in, high impact loan moves, Mario Gomez, Vincent Aboubakar, Anderson Talisca. Every time we had to bite that bitter pill and say farewell to those players. Now, obviously, Aboubakar didn't stay, but that's okay. Yes, he was important for 3/4 of the season, but let's not forget, he played no part in the final third or the final fourth of the season. And that was where the prizes were divided. Yes, Aboubakar was important, but Ghezzal picked up that slack that he had left when he was injured, quote unquote. And he lifted the team up on his shoulders and dragged us across the finish line. And we are able to keep this team together. Not just are we able to keep it together, we're building further upon it. And how are we doing that? Dear God, Beşiktaş have officially signed Alex Teixeira. This is a massive move. A massive move. This is not the type of player that would usually come to Turkey. The only reason that Beşiktaş are able to sign this guy is because we are very lucky that 5 years ago, the Chinese suddenly decided to start competing with the top 5 European leagues and started bringing in some of the biggest talent in Europe for insane, ludicrous contracts. Alex Teixeira was one of the first of many, mainly Brazilians in their mid-20s, in their primes, that China would swoop away from the Premier League and from La Liga, but mainly from the Premier League. Teixeira was somebody high on the wish list of Liverpool. Liverpool were really interested in getting him at the time for 40-something million. He ultimately ended up going to China for 50 million. And it's not that Liverpool weren't able to pay that transfer fee. It was the money that the Chinese were willing to offer to the player himself. I believe, and I might be mistaken here, but that Alex Teixeira in 5 years made nearly 80 million euros by going to play in China, which is bonkers. Now, that's to say that the chance of us getting a player like this realistically it wouldn't exist. Had Alex Teixeira gone to England 5 years ago, he'd probably be having a lot of success there right now. But there's a possibility that he wouldn't. It's a possibility that he would have turned out like Andrei Yarmolenko, for example, who also went from the Ukraine to England and didn't have much success, mainly due to injuries though. I mean, so that is possible. So that is another way that a Turkish club could have potentially signed a player like this. But realistically speaking, let's put it in that frame. Let's frame it positively for us. The reason that we are able to sign him now mainly is because, for some reason or another, English clubs don't look at players that have lapsing contracts in China. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, look at Hulk. He went back to Brazil, for example. We were very interested in him as well. And obviously Hulk is different because he's 34 years old, whereas Alex only just turned 31. But yeah, the English clubs mainly, with, let's be honest, the Premier League is that big league that gallops everything up in Europe. All the big talents, all the shiny new toys. That's what the Premier League clubs go after. And 5 years ago, Alex Teixeira was one of those shiny toys. Now, he's, in their eyes, just another Brazilian who had quote-unquote lacking ambition, chose for the money, but let's be honest, who would turn down 80 million euros over 4 or 5 years? I don't think anyone in their right mind would. But, that's probably how they look at it. But for us, it's a positive, because we are able to sign this guy. This is a person, this is a player that has consistently, for almost a decade, had seasons of 30 goal contributions. Let's take a little bit of a closer look to his stats here. So, in his last season in China, he made 19 appearances. In that 19 appearances, he scored 10 goals and provided 4 assists. So that's 14 goal contributions in 19 appearances. The season before that, he has 30 appearances and he has 9 assists and 18 goals. That's 27 goal contributions in 30 appearances. Season before that, 28 appearances, 13 goals, 4 assists. That's 17 appearances, 17 goal contributions there. And that's just in the league, mind you. Then the season before that, 19 appearances, 8 goals, 2 assists. So that's 10 goals in 19 appearances. Season before that, that is his first season in China, 28 appearances, 11 goals, 6 assists. Then I have a bunch of stats here from Shakhtar. I don't have the assists here, unfortunately. But his last season in Shakhtar, he scored 22 goals. Season before that, he scored 17 goals. I mean, this guy, statistically, at Shakhtar especially, like, I really have to have these numbers here for a second. But, I mean, it's crazy. It's just maddening. Like, he has legit between 25 and 30 goal contributions a season whenever he plays 30 plus games or something. And this is, like I said, this is just league appearances. Like, this doesn't even factor in cup appearances, in that case, Asian tournament appearances or European tournament appearances. Like, he also has, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 11 lifetime goals in the Champions League. Like, that's more than any Beşiktaş player in history for Beşiktaş in the Beşiktaş shirt, of course, has managed. It's just mad. Like, his stats are insane. Obviously, stats aren't all that. Stats aren't the be-all, end-all. I am a firm believer of having to watch a player to be able to assess them properly, because stats can be misguiding. But, you know, Shakhtar were a force for many, many years, and he was, I believe, their big star. That's at least how I, as an outsider, always looked at it. And hopefully I'll be able to speak to someone on this matter in the near future. But long story short, I think we signed an incredibly talented, proven, consistent player that is going to be able to provide us with lots of goals and lots of assists. This is the type of player that, like I said, usually doesn't come to Turkey. Like, of course, we've had exceptions. You know, we have seen Anderson Talisca as a player like this as well, but also Alex de Souza and Wesley Sneijder to a lesser extent. Wesley Sneijder to a lesser extent, in the sense of he wasn't a goal machine. He wasn't necessarily an assist machine. He had a lot, like, you know, very respectable stats, but not like this. You know, this is not on the level of a Mo Salah or anything like that, but it's like the stats I just read to you. Is more than 50% of games he contributes to a goal. That is insane for a non-striker. And mind you, he has played as a striker. He has played as a left winger. He has played as a right winger. His favorite position is a number 10 position, but he is a jack of all trades in the offensive compartment, which also allows a lot of freedom for Sergen. And that's one of the reasons Sergen really wanted him at the club. He wanted a versatile player that can be deciding. And we all know that Sergen hasn't played with a 10 really over the past years. Over the past 2 years, I should say. Laic has been more used in an 8 role, for example. Now, I hope, and I have to believe that Sergen wants to use Alex Teixeira in a more offensive way, because otherwise, why insist on this player? This is his strength of offensive contribution, right? So, we're looking at a few more options this coming window. Kyle Larin still at the club. He could leave. That could open up the possibility for Alex Teixeira to play on the left. There's of course the option that he plays as a false 9, as a striker, as a second striker, as a 10. On the right, I think we're pretty set. God forbid Ghezzal gets injured. I think he's going to be our starting right midfielder, right, and Rosie is going to be our starting right back. Like, our right side seems to be sorted. Our left side, right now, I mean, we still have Ridvan and Sakala, who I think we can all agree obviously we all love Ridvan and we hope he has a great career and all that, but right now, if you compare our left side to our right side, our left side is our weaker side on the pitch. But, you know, if you put a guy like Alex Teixeira there, you have a lot of quality there suddenly. Anyway, that's Alex Teixeira. I'm sure we'll go more in depth on him later, and I am going to try to line up an interview. And I am going to try and get a phone call in with somebody very special and get some comments of his opinion, somebody who worked with Alex Teixeira for years. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some comments from this person. And I'm not going to spoil who it is, because if I can't deliver on it, I don't want to have said it. But we'll see. Anyway, so that's that. We've got Valentin Rosier, we've got Rachid Ghezzal, we've got Alex Teixeira now. We already had Salih Uçan, we already had Kenan Karaman. Now the big thing that Sergen wants is the striker, right? And after the striker, he also still wants one more defender. And of course, we've been linked with Diego Godin. Beşiktaş have made an offer to Cagliari. I believe today, in fact, was the deadline for the offer that Beşiktaş made. Beşiktaş had raised their initial offer of be willing to pay $1.5 million of his almost $4 million a year contract, and they have upped that offer to being willing to pay $2 million, and they gave Cagliari until today to decide. So today is Wednesday again, I repeat that, so by the time you hear this, this may all be old news already. It might be turned down, might be accepted, I don't know. We'll see. Diego Godin is still the prime target, supposedly. That may change. But now the other thing, the most important thing arguably, is the striker position, right? So we lost Vincent Aboubakar, and we saw last season Kyle Larin had an amazing season, but playing him as the lone striker didn't work. He flourished on the left as an inside forward, or however you want to call it, but as a 9, it didn't work. And even, I remember in a post-season interview, Cenk Tosun even said that, like, when I got injured, when Vincent Abu got injured, you know, it was kind of a problem for us because Larin feels more comfortable on the left. Like, even his teammates said it, right? Now, I think there's gonna be a couple of moves here. Like, first and foremost, I firmly believe that on deadline day, Cenk Tosun will terminate his deal or sort something out with Everton. He's in the last year of his contract. He's still injured for a couple of months. I think that on deadline day, Cenk Tosun will sign for Besiktas. If not this window, January. Reason I believe this is, first and foremost, I think he wants to stay. I think he wants to come back. Secondly, last week when we were playing a friendly match against Demirspor, he was actually there in attendance. I think that Cenk Tosun wants to continue at Besiktas, wants to rehab, and when he comes back, I think he wants to be playing in the Besiktas shirt again. So I believe that there's a very big chance that we will sign Cenk Tosun on deadline day. And that's still a way off, right? Still a couple of weeks ago. But if that doesn't happen, I feel confident in saying that he will be a Besiktas player in the second half of the season. Obviously, things can change, stuff can change. This is just my gut feeling. I have no inside knowledge, I have no scoop. Just my gut feeling. Just as how my gut feeling was Ghezzal will stay at Besiktas, he's not going to Galatasaray. Anyway, the most important part is the number 1 striker. And the name that we've been hearing most has been Diego Costa. Diego Costa has supposedly now agreed terms with Atlético Mineiro, the same club that swooped in for Hulk during January last season. And I don't think that's a bad thing. For me, Diego Costa was a potential Mario Gomez transfer in the sense that he's a big risk, but also a potential high reward. Big risk because financially he'll be expensive. And he's had a lot of injuries, just like Mario Gomez when he was at Fiorentina. Just before he came to us, he had a lot of injury woes and stuff like that. But both of them, of course, I think Diego Costa would be the best pure forward that we've had since Mario Gomez. Like, better than Vincent Aboubakar, better than Dembaba before. Like, he's on the same level, roughly, with Mario. And in that sense, I think it would have been a very interesting gamble worth taking, but still a gamble with a potential very expensive downside, a la Radamel Falcao for Galatasaray. I don't think it would have turned out as bad because Besiktas would never give the types of wages that Galatasaray ended up giving to Falcao. But whether you pay someone 5, 6, 7 million or pay someone 3.5 or 3 million for Besiktas, that 3.5, 3 million would still be detrimental if he turned out to be injured constantly. So I was never against the Diego Costa deal, but at the same time I am also not disappointed that if he goes somewhere else, because it is a big risk. It's a risk arguably worth taking, but a big risk nevertheless. Now, that is probably off the table. I believe he's going to sign in Brazil, but no big deal, right? We have other options. Luuk de Jong is another option that we have. He's currently playing for Sevilla, but of course he's someone that made his career in the Netherlands. But de Jong, his wife, kind of wants to return to the Netherlands. De Jong isn't super keen on the move itself. Personally, I think Luuk de Jong would be a good fit. Would be a lot less expensive than Diego Costa. I mean, a lot less expensive. I believe he is still on 2.5 million a year at Sevilla, so that's still pretty expensive. But you're also not getting a player of the same level. Like, Luuk de Jong is a very good center forward, very good with his head, hardworking, but he is also a player that you really need to build around if you want to get the most out of him. Obviously, they didn't do that at Sevilla. Obviously, they didn't do that when he went to Germany. At PSV, they did, and he was very successful there. But I think he would fit well into our system, don't get me wrong. I think with a guy like Rachid Ghezzal, with a guy like Teixeira behind him, I think he could do really well for us. But for me, if a player isn't really into it, then I don't know. Like, it's very important, I think, for example, why Rosier was as successful as he was, because his heart was in it. That said, he had his doubts before he came. He didn't want the deal to include an option to buy because he wasn't sure about playing in Turkey. So that could be the same for Luuk de Jong. Like, Luuk de Jong could come to Turkey with major doubts and end up loving it and really flourishing in Turkey for Beşiktaş with our fans and all that and the passion surrounding the team. But it might not turn out that way. You know, it's always a gamble. Like, these types of moves always are, and especially when you have players that are maybe prone to being a little bit homesick, already having a wife that kind of wants to go back home, misses her family and all that stuff, and nothing wrong with that, I completely understand it. But then it might not be the most ideal move. So, Luuk de Jong was our prime target, but according to TRT Sport now, we have switched our gaze, so to speak, to Belgian international striker Michy Batshuayi. And this, for me, personally, of course you all know I'm a little biased, I'm Belgian after all, or half Belgian, and this for me would be a dream signing. Now, don't get me wrong, Michy Batshuayi isn't a Diego Costa level striker in his prime, you know, like Diego Costa in his prime, or Mario Gomez in his prime, but Michy Batshuayi is a really good player, athletic. He's not the tallest, like he's 185, so he's kind of in between, but it's tall enough. It's same as Vincent Aboubakar, a little bit taller than Cenk was. But he's a good goal scorer, he's athletic, and he doesn't, like, he's a little aloof almost, in a good way though. Like, I don't think that the Michy Batshuayi, if he would come one-on-one with Altay, one-on-one with Fernando Muslera, I don't think he's the type of player that would give a rat's ass. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's gonna bag it. He might miss it and blow it into the stands, but like, he's that type of player. Has always struck me like I don't give a fuck, you know, but not in a bad way. Like, in a, yeah, pressure doesn't really get to this guy that much. I think Michy Batshuayi would be a really good signing, especially he's in the last season of his contract with Chelsea. If we could get him for, I mean, I don't even know if it's possible if we still have this budget, but if we could get him for 5 million euros or something, he is 27 years old. Like, that is something that really excites me. Because for years now, we've had this issue of loaning strikers. Constantly loaning strikers. Like, the last striker we bought was Dembaba. And we sold him just a season later. Obviously, we couldn't resist. We bought him for 6 and we sold him for 13. So yeah, great business. But then afterwards, it's been the same thing all over and over and over, right? We had Mario Gomez, loaned him, then lost him. Vincent Aboubakar loaned him, then lost him. Alvaro Negredo bought him. That didn't turn out well. Then we had Wagner Love, bought him, didn't turn out well. And these were all like Negredo was in his 30s, Love was deep into his 30s. Yeah, and last season we had Abu, we signed him, but you know what happened there. So I would really like us to sign a good striker in his prime on a long-term deal, like Michy Batshuayi for 4 years, for example. I mean, I don't know if it's possible. But we are in a good position in the sense that Batshuayi did not have a good loan spell last season at Crystal Palace. That means that the interest from Premier League clubs will probably not be as keen. That opens up possibilities. There's been rumors over the past couple of weeks of him even returning to Belgium, with Standard, with Anderlecht, with Club Brugge all being named. Look, if these clubs are being linked, we can definitely make an offer, a compelling offer for him. Financially, we can offer more. Beşiktaş can offer more. On top of that, Batshuayi said himself he does not want to come back to Belgium yet. And we have another trump card. We have our own Joseph de Souza in this story. Josh Kevin Nkoudou. Batshuayi and Nkoudou are really good friends from their time stemming together at Marseille. Hopefully, let's hope, Nkoudou plays de Souza in this story and tries to convince Michy Batshuayi. Our fans have already started bombarding his Instagram account now. Some players get flattered by that, love the attention. Other players like Alexander Sørloth don't appreciate that and tell, and I understand both sides, I mean, if you don't know how to turn off your notifications, I can see how that is very annoying getting 300,000 come to, in this case, Beşiktaş posts on your pictures. But yeah, let's hope and see. This is the last big move for me. I mean, if we can sign the striker, then for me at least, in my opinion, our transfer window would have been perfect. I don't even care if we sign a center back then. Like, I think a center back is luxury at this point. Then there's one more thing, and I have my own opinion about it, but sources in Belgium are saying that Beşiktaş have made Raja Nainggolan a 2-year deal for 4.8 million over those 2 years, so 2.4 million a year. Very strong sources, supposedly. And I believe that because the reporter that said it, I trust him. I trust that he has good sources. I wouldn't be surprised if that source would be Nainggolan himself. That said, I don't see how that makes sense for us. I'm willing to believe that we've sent out feelers, that we've made an offer. I think that we were in the market for another central midfielder. But with the transfer of Alex Teixeira, I think we no longer are. We were also interested in Gedson Fernandes, of course, a player that spent last season at Galatasaray. But I think that has also cooled down now with the signing of Alex Teixeira. I don't think that, first and foremost, in terms of foreigner spots, we have room for another foreign midfielder. And I think that Sergen either wanted a really good technical 8, or he wanted Alex Teixeira. And we signed Alex Teixeira, so I don't think this rumor is up to date, so to speak. So yeah, there are credible rumors that we are interested in Raja Nainggolan, but I think with the transfer of Teixeira, that is off the table. That is just, again, my personal opinion, my gut feeling. This is no insider knowledge, nothing like that. I just don't see the logic behind signing Raja Nainggolan at this point, or Gedson Fernandes, for that matter. Alright, I think that pretty much do it for me for today. Thank you for listening to this first lengthy episode of Kaan's Corner. I'm sorry, Sinan, for going so long. But hopefully we can do this again in the future, and I can try to tone it down a little bit. I went over half an hour here with my ramblings, but lots of exciting stuff to talk about. It's been a fantastic preseason for us in terms of transfers. Not so much in preparation. I feel like we're lacking a little bit, and I'm a little worried about the start of the season. But all in all, with the players that we have available, with the material that we have available, especially if we sign a good striker, I think we should be on paper in for a great season. Having said that, a little bit of a caveat, I thought the same thing in 2010-2011 when we signed Quaresma and Guti. I thought the same thing in 2017-18 when we arguably had our strongest squad ever. And the thing is, having a great transfer window, having a great squad is no guarantee for success. Let's hope that it translates to the pitch. Let's hope that we can extend that title, and let's hope that we do well in the Champions League. I'm not saying qualify for the next round or anything, but let's hope that we can represent Turkey in a good way, because it's been a long time. It's been since the 2017-18 season that a Turkish club has actually not embarrassed themselves in the Champions League. So let's hope that Beşiktaş can once again be the saving grace for Turkish football, and that we can pick back up where we left off a couple of years ago, because we can't just point fingers. We've been terrible in Europe ourselves, and Turkey needs the clubs to step up and to start bringing in coefficient points. We won't have a direct qualification ticket to the Champions League next season. Let's hope that in a couple of seasons, with a couple of good seasons now coming, hopefully, knock on wood, that we will have that Champions League ticket again in a couple of years. Anyway, that'll do it for me for today, and I'll see you again in the near future. Let's go Beşiktaş.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Mr. Bayazit. Absolute pleasure to have you back with us. I look forward to more of your rants and raves. No, but honestly, it was great to hear your voice again on the podcast, and I'm sure our listeners will agree. I can't wait for the season. You hit every nail on the head, I think. I didn't want to steal your thunder, so I avoided these topics before your segment. I think you really said enough, though. And our listeners now have a almost hour-long podcast probably on the hand, so I'll leave it at that. Stay tuned for more. Follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow myself at Sir_Writes_a lot. Follow that dude over there who just gave us a fantastic segment at Razzerian, Razzerian. That's Kaan's Twitter handle. Follow us on Instagram, Black Eagles Podcast, one word. My apologies for hitting the snooze button on that account during this summer. Kind of slipped my mind. I mentioned my cat passing. It's been the COVID. There's been a lot going on in my headspace. And so, on top of the podcast itself, apparently the Instagram account became a bit much to handle. But yeah, things are normalizing in the Schwarting household, and the season's upon us. So stay tuned for more. And as Kaan alluded to previously, and I further posit, let's go Beşiktaş! Peace out, everyone. Stay tuned for more. And yeah, let's go front office. Maybe bring us a striker, please. Nerede, huh, Yusuf? What's the deal with that?
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.